Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy. It's been quite a while going through this book. It's a big book, a humongous book, and also so many things we have passed over and looked at and examined. And so we come to the last chapter in our study this evening. It's a chapter that deals with Moses' death. We read previously about the song that he had written for the people of Israel to sing, I suppose, after he was gone. But anyway, verse 1, chapter 34. Moses went up from the plains of Moab unto the mountain of Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, that is over against Jericho. And the Lord showed him all the land of Gilead unto Dan. Now, Rabbi Copland tells us some say this was written by Joshua. And I know there's some debate here or differences of opinion as how could he write it? Moses went up. Well, he hadn't gone up. If he wrote it, it hadn't gone up yet, because that's past tense. He went up. That's past tense. But anyway, let me share with you what one writer says about it from Alexander's Hebrew and English Pentateuch. And I quote, most commentators are of opinion that Ezra was the author of the last chapter of Deuteronomy. Some think it was Joshua, and others, the 70 elders, immediately after the death of Moses, adding that the book of Deuteronomy originally ended with a prophetic blessing upon the 12 tribes. Happy art thou, O Israel, who is like unto thee, O people saved by the Lord, etc. And that what now makes the last chapter of Deuteronomy was formerly the first of Joshua, but was removed from thence and joined to the former by way of supplement. This opinion will not appear unnatural if it be considered that sections and other divisions, as well as points and pauses, were invented long since these books were written. For in those early ages, several books were connected together and followed each other on the same roll. The beginning of one book might therefore be easily transferred to the end of another, and in process of time be considered as its real conclusion, just as in the case of Deuteronomy, especially as this supplemental chapter contains an account of last transactions and death of the great author of the Pentateuch. The end of quote. A lengthy quotation, but I wanted to get it in here because there are different opinions, different views, and quite frankly, myself, I'm not interested in debating just who wrote it, although it might be interesting a discussion, but it's not important to me that as to who wrote it. To me, the importance is that it was written. And it's kind of like in the New Testament, there is a debate as to who wrote the book of Hebrews. And we have differing views there as to who did write it. And again, its contents is what is important, not who wrote it. And that, I think, is how we should look at this chapter 34. Obviously, we've got different views as to whether Moses wrote this last chapter, although it's included in his writings of the Torah. We have interesting questions concerning the authors of other writings. Another example is the last two verses of Second Chronicles. And those two verses of Second Chronicles, the last ones, are the first two verses of Ezra. So it seems that would raise the question, does that mean Ezra was the author of the Chronicles? There are other opinions that Ezra also wrote the book of Nehemiah. And also 2 Kings 20 is repeated in Isaiah chapter 38. Both chapters read the same. 2 Kings 20, Isaiah 38. So does this mean that Isaiah wrote 2 Kings as well as the book of Isaiah? These are things, of course, that we wonder about. And as I've said more than once, I'm from Missouri originally, and Missourians are known to be called those that need to be shown. And anyway, we will have questions concerning matters like this until that day when, as Paul put it in Corinthians 13, we shall know as we are known. It was reported that Dwight Moody, the famous preacher, speaker, had a glorious and triumphant homegoing. In his final moments, he exclaimed, and I quote, "Heaven opens before me. If this is death, it is sweet. There is no valley here. God is calling, and I must go." "No," said a loved one, "you are dreaming." Moody answered, "No, I'm not dreaming. I have looked within the gates, and I have seen the children's faces. This is my triumph. This is my coronation day." The end of quote. Anyway, let's go and read verses 2 and 3. "And all Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim, and Manasseh, all the land of Judah unto the utmost sea, and the south, and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees unto Zoar." Of course, I should have connected this and read all these verses together. Moses went up, let me back up to verse 1. Moses went up from the plains of Moab unto the mountain of Nebo to the top of Pisgah, that is over against Jericho, and the Lord showed him all the land of Gilead and Dan and all of Naphtali and the land of Ephraim and Manasseh and all the land of Judah unto the utmost sea, and the south and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, unto Zoar. So Moses on the top up there, the top of Pisgah, he's up where he can look across, and he's all right. He can see it. We'll read that in verse 4. All the tribes, they're not mentioned by name here, but Moses was able to scan, obviously, the vast panorama of the country that would soon be in possession of Israel. One other thing, let me add to this event. We know that Moses' eyes were not dim, but could he possibly, without the miraculous, that's what I would need to call it, miraculous aid of Yahweh, could he see such a vast land? He's up on this mountain and he's looking, and Israel, the country, as you can easily see on the maps today, it's a long country. So how can a man see for 500 miles? But God can take care of that. So in verse 4, the Lord said unto him, "This is the land which I swear unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, saying, I will give it unto thy seed. I have caused thee to see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not go over thither." Mr. Spurgeon wrote, Truly, there was no need that he should cross into the land, for it was full of Canaanites. And it was better for the grand old man to go to the land where the wicked cease from troubling than to endure the toils of war in his old age. I like that. Mr. Thompson wrote, the invitation to Moses to view the land was not merely a kindly provision of God to allow his servant to view Israel's inheritance. It may have had some legal significance. There's some evidence that this was part of a legal process. A man viewed what he was to possess. My mind. It had to be a tremendous occasion for Moses as he looked across, not being able to go there himself because of what he had done back yonder sometime before this concerning the rock. Now, verse 5 says, so Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. Moses, servant of the Lord. Mr. Copeland, we've quoted Rabbi Copeland several times throughout our journey through Deuteronomy. But let me mention that he mentioned something what I think is interesting. He said that during his entire lifetime, and even in death, he was not called this until after he has died. That's interesting. Now, we had mentioned previously, and I don't remember if it was Friday night or when it was, but one time last week, we were reading something where it says about something about God and Moses, the man of God, the man of God. And I pointed out then in that study that that was the first time, the only time that such a statement was made about Moses, the man of God. And here as well as something during his entire lifetime and even in death, Mr. Copeland, Rabbi, says he was not called this until after he has died. My. Now, we want people to think well of us. At our funeral, people are going to be looking back. People are going to be talking about what we did or didn't do, or what we were or what we were not. We hope that we will leave a report, a lifestyle, a manner of conduct that people can look back and say, he did well. He did his best. He was faithful. Now, notice it says here that he died. And I want to quote again from Copeland. There is dispute, he says, in the Talmud as to whether this was written by Joshua or prophetically by Moses. Again, it's there. Now, according to the word of the Lord, or at the mouth of the Lord, the Jews tell us with a kiss from the mouth of God. Well, different ways of saying. Ancient Jewish traditions say that Moses died as God took away his soul with a kiss. The medieval Jewish rabbi Maimonides, another one that we've quoted from several times, Maimonides was the noted Jewish writer during the Middle Ages. And he wrote that of the 903 different ways to die, this was the best. That's interesting. Now, according to the word of the Lord, he died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. I also like the words of David Guzik. He said, so Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab. Moses' epitaph, what we might call the line on his tombstone, though he actually had none, was simple. It was not Moses, Prince of Egypt. It was not Moses, murderer of an Egyptian. It was not Moses, shepherd in the wilderness. It was not Moses, the spokesman for a nation. It was not Moses, miracle worker. It was not Moses, prophet. It was not Moses, the man who saw a piece of God's glory. It was not Moses who never entered the promised land. At the end of it all, the title was simple. Moses, the servant of the Lord. My. That's interesting. Again, that's David Guzik, which I think is so appropriate. Notice it says he died there. And we are left to our imagination as to what Moses said about gazing over into that promised land. What could have been his thoughts? Did he say anything to the one whom he had conversed with face to face when he was on Sinai? What did he say? There have been more references and experiences that we've been studying up to this point in our Bible concerning Moses, this book, than any other man that we can study about through the rest of the Bible. Moses is mentioned some 770 times in 4 books of the first 5 of our Bible. That's awesome. This, I think, as well emphasizes the greatness, the importance of this man. Verse 6 says, he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab over against Beth Peor, but no man knoweth of his sepulchre unto this day. And notice it says, and he buried him. Now, who is this he? Who did the burying? Who is the he that buried Moses? Well, obviously, I say obviously, let me put it this way. If this is speaking of Yahweh, then how impressive it is. But maybe it was an angel that was appointed. Who knows? I don't know. No man knoweth of his sepulchre. If man had the privilege of burying this great man, then they would no doubt have built a tremendous monument there. We would call it a tombstone today, I guess, so they could put his name on it and whatever, and it would become a shrine that they could visit, and maybe once or twice a year they would come and give thanks to the Lord for this great man that had led them so faithfully for those 40 years. Verse 7 also points out an interesting point. Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated. Now, we've read of aged leaders before, such as Jacob worship leaning on the top of his staff. Hebrews 11 and verse 2. They're all depicted in the frailties of their years, but not Moses. Moses, he's standing erect. His eyesight is keen. He's staring across in the promised land, and he's being told by Yahweh, here's this man's lot, and this is where so-and-so is going to be located. Moses was uniquely different. So many. The Bible says children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. So the days of weeping and mourning for Moses were ended. In Numbers chapter 20, verse 29, we have it said when Aaron went up on a mountain and died, that they wept for him for 30 days. Now, this period, it must have been the normal period of time that was spent by the people in remembrance of their great leaders. And then we go on in verse 9. Joshua, the son of Nun, was full of the Spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands upon him, and the children of Israel hearkened unto him, and he did as the Lord commanded Moses. Moses had laid his hands upon him. This is back in Numbers chapter 27, verses 18 and 19, where it says, the Lord said unto Moses, take thee Joshua the son of Nun, a man in whom is the Spirit, and lay thine hand upon him, and set him before Eleazar the priest, and before all the congregation, and give him a charge in their sight. My. Joshua, he had been a faithful companion of Moses through those 40 years. He had accompanied Moses on Mount Sinai, not all the way to where Moses went, at least part of the way. And we talk about Moses being 40 days on Sinai, 40 days and 40 nights of fasting, not drinking anything, not eating anything. But we don't read anything about Joshua. Joshua was with him again, not side by side, but joined him to a certain point. So I wonder, it doesn't say yea or nay, but I wonder if Joshua as well fasted 40 days and 40 nights as he went with his leader up that mountain. Now, again, let me quote from Spurgeon. He writes, God fitted him for the work. Moses ordained him, and the people chose him. Thus Joshua was fully equipped. Men may die, but God's work goes on. When those who seem the most necessary pillars are removed, the temple still stands. I like that. Again, from Charles Spurgeon. In verse 10, we read, and there arose not a prophet since in Israel like unto Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. My. There is an eminent economic philosopher, and he gave, I don't know the period of time, many years ago, of course, but he gave a lecture on Moses, and he made this statement in his lecture: to lead into freedom a people long crushed by tyranny, to discipline and order such a mighty host, to harden them into fighting men before whom warlike tribes quailed and walled cities went down, to repress discontent and jealousy and mutiny required some towering character, a character blending in highest expression the qualities of politician, patriot, philosopher, and statesman. My. Again, Henry George. Anyway, interesting. Face to face. Now, we know, of course, this is an expression in relationship that Moses had like no other man, no other person had with Yahweh. There would have been no face to face with Yahweh, of course, as Yahweh is spirit. He doesn't have a face per se. He is spirit. John tells us that in chapter 4 and verse 24. And also John said in chapter 1 of his gospel account, verse 18, no man has seen God at any time. In verse 11, in all the signs and wonders which the Lord sent him to do in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh and to all his servants and to all his land. Verse 12, and in all that mighty hand and in all the great terror which Moses showed in the sight of all Israel. So no other people had then or since been witnesses to the miraculous presence of Yahweh as the people of Israel and as Moses. What other nation of people can attest to the manifestation of God's glory like the people of Israel? In him were concentrated all the great offices of Israel. He was prophet, he was ruler, he was judge, he was priest. And if some who held these offices were great, Moses was the greatest of them all. I like the words of Dennis Prager, the noted Jewish speaker and writer. He says, the Torah begins with God's creation of the world and ends before all Israel. The Torah's first words, in the beginning, and its last words is Israel. Its last word is Israel. It is fair to say no two events have shaped human history as have God's creation of the world and God's creation of the Jews. Again, Dennis Prager. I like that. Moses. My. What a study. What an interesting character to study. And one of these days, at the tearing of the Lord, we'll be called off of this old world, and sometime in that distant future, I believe we'll be able to see this great man. Jesus said in Matthew 8:11, I believe it is, that we'll sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So maybe why can't we add to it Moses and Elijah and Joshua? Let me share with you in closing the paradoxes in the life of Moses. Moses was the child of a slave and the son of a queen. He was born in a hut and lived in a palace. He inherited poverty, but enjoyed unlimited wealth. He was the leader of armies, but the keeper of the flock. He was the mightiest warriors and the meekest of men. He was educated in the court and dwelt in the desert. He was fitted for a city and wandered in the wilderness. He was backward in speech, but he talked with God. He had the rod of a shepherd, but the power of God. He was a fugitive from Pharaoh and an ambassador for God. He was the giver of the law and the forerunner of grace. He died alone on Mount Nebo and appeared with Christ on the Mount of Transfiguration. And yet Moses was no different from other men. He had gifts and potential and faults like all of us. And lastly, but not least, concerning this great man, he was a man of faith, a man who believed God. My. So what an example, what a individual that we've been looking at for the last, several weeks, going through Deuteronomy particularly, and also going all the way back to Exodus about the time of his birth and the Lord calling him out. My. It's been an interesting study that we trust has been a blessing to those that have joined us in our study. God bless you. Brother Michael, God bless you. I'm glad you're home safe and thankful for the tremendous service and gathering you had there. In what do you call the name of that place where you were? I guess you're gone. Well, anyway, to all that have joined us this evening, God bless, and we'll say a good night to you.